All right, everybody, welcome to the True Crime News. As usual, I'm Morgan Rector, excuse me, and Michelle Gower joins us as well. And how would you like to start off this broadcast?
Oh God, I have no idea. I'm so tired. Like, why are you leaving this to me?
Would you like a more of a build-up? Wait for me to go through my first story and then collect your energies and collect your thoughts and then
Let's just put it this way. The viewers are in for some pretty interesting stories. We're coming out swinging after being on hiatus.
oh, same here. My
So,
mine were very fucked up. Believe me.
yes, mine are. So, fuck it,
All
let's
right,
just get into it.
all right, I'll go first then. All
Okay.
right. The first one is the headline goes, Coroner never saw homicide scene like Lacy Fletcher. Woman found melted to couch. It still bothers me today.
Oh God.
So the coroner called to examine Lacy Fletcher after her body was found, as I said, melted in a waste-filled crater in her family's couch, has never seen a homicide like this and is still disturbed by what he saw. Fletcher, 36, was found covered in urine and feces and fused to the maggot-ridden couch at her parents' East Feliciana, Louisiana home in January 2022. And this week, Sheila and Clay Fletcher pleaded no contest to no manslaughter over her horrifying death. To manslaughter over her horrifying death. That was early this year. I think it was in January.
Mm.
I've seen every kind of death there is. I've never seen a homicide like this. I have never seen a human being literally tortured and allowed to die while she is alive. Dr. Ewell Bickham told News Nation's Ashley Banfield Thursday. I've never seen that in my life. Lacy did not decompose. She rotted in her own body, in that hole, in that sewer, in the couch. So prosecutors said that Fletcher had lain there, wasting away and in great suffering for about 12 years, and blamed her parents for the neglect. She weighed 100 pounds at the time of her death. She had reportedly been diagnosed with autism, and her parents claim she refused to eat when they tried to feed her, leading to her being unable to leave the couch and her eventual death. Strangely, prior photos show a young and bright looking Fletcher at school at Brownsville Baptist Academy, where she was on the volleyball team before she was apparently homeschooled after ninth grade. See, I'm not a big believer in homeschooling because you never know what that could lead to. This is a good example. Uh, a neighbor, Robert Blades, 61, said she was just a normal, fun kid before vanishing from view 15 years ago after her parents said she had also developed anxiety and took her to psychologists. Bickham told News Nation he was still trying to process the awful scene he witnessed and was horrified by the smell in the house before he even got to Fletcher's body. When I walked in, the house smelled of a stench of, it smelled like a sewer or septic tank, and also a smell of death, he said. I've never smelled that in my life. I've dealt with decomposed bodies. I've dealt with all sorts of death, degradation, whatever. Never experienced this in all of my career. Bickham said Fletcher's parents were in the house when he arrived. Her father was emotionless while her mother sat with her head between her knees and shed a tear or two. What he found in the room to their left shocked him and continues to traumatize him, he said. I mean, obviously it did. He keeps saying it over and over.
Right.
It still bothers me today. Like I said, I've seen every kind of death there is. I've seen elderly people die of natural causes. I've seen suicides, homicides. I've seen everything there is. Bickham said there was no evidence that Fletcher was being fed except for a small bag of hard candy nearby. He said her stomach contained both yellow foam from the couch and feces. So you take it from there, he said. Bickham also told News Nation that he did not believe Sheila and Clay Fletcher lived with their daughter in the house. I don't believe they were living in the home. You could not live in the house. Nobody could stand the stench, to be honest with you. I think there was something adjacent. Lacy Fletcher had sores and bone visible when she was found and had been infested with maggots, including around her genitals. While she was still alive, documents obtained from the Daily Mail indicate. Her parents were initially arrested in January 2022 after Fletcher was discovered dead inside the hole in the couch. The couple, who faced second-degree murder charges, pleaded no contest Monday to reduced charges of manslaughter. The Fletchers spent almost 18 months denying second-degree murder after being indicted twice by a grand jury in Clinton, Louisiana. They had faced the possibility of life in prison without parole if convicted at a trial due to start this week. They are out on bond until February 20th. Their next court hearing is at the East Feliciana Courthouse on March 20th. So that's not over. So you see, I'm not a big fan of homeschooling because you never know what children could be subjected to once they're isolated like that. You
Yeah.
know, like the biggest tool used by an abuser is isolation. And, like during COVID, with so many kids at home from school, a lot of them ended up being abused because if they came from abusive homes, then there were no mandated reporters to report it, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, this is an extreme example, of course.
I just couldn't. I've seen a couple news clips about this, and I'm pretty sure I saw people in biohazard suits pulling up pieces of the couch.
Yeah.
And oh God,
What I'm
I
wondering,
could not imagine.
what I'm wondering is,
That's
like,
nightmare fuel.
did they not let her get off the couch? That's what I'm wondering. Like, how do you,
Well, so what it sounds like is they withheld food from her other than like bullshit candy. And when it honestly does not take long for your muscles to grow weak from misuse.
yeah,
Like, I've been in the ICU for like a week before, and even after like 3 days, I had to use a walker just because I was laid up in bed 24/7, not using my muscles, and I had gone through a lot of trauma. So my body was just like, holy shit.
oh,
But so it sounds like if they were withholding the bare basics from her, yeah, she's going to naturally grow weak from that. And then it's going to get to a point where no, she can't get off the couch, and she probably could barely move. So she was just stuck there. And then that was just, that leads to bed sores if she's not moving around, and then those get infected. And then she's also using the bathroom on the couch. So it's like literally forming her own little like cesspool in the sofa. And the fact that she had to fucking eat the couch just to have something in her stomach, like
yeah.
they better never get out.
She must not have been a high functioning autistic, because if you could manage to force her to stay in a couch for 12 years, maybe she was like a lower functioning.
It's hard to say, and it could just be from muscle atrophy. If her
Yeah.
muscle grew too weak, she's not going to be able to do anything. She probably couldn't even pull herself up to sit upright.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
So then she's like fully, at the mercy of whoever's caring for her. And candy, though, like, I don't get that. Like, of all the random things,
Yeah, this is
candy and couch.
candy. Yeah, yeah,
That poor girl.
foam and feces. Yeah. This is right up
Oh,
there. This is right up there with the girl in the closet, like the desperation to eat and
right.
eating anything. So it's
All
a
right.
damn shame.
Another Parent of the Year award coming out here. Atlanta mom accused of killing 2 sons by putting them in an oven and turning it on will stand trial.
Oh man.
Ah. A mother's accused of killing her 2 young children by placing them in an oven and leaving them for a long period of time is going to stand trial after waiving her plea hearing. WAGA-TV reports Lamora Williams did not stand before a Fulton County judge for her hearing, meaning that a court date for her trial will be scheduled at another time. Prosecutors charged Williams with 2 counts of murder, 4 counts of felony murder, 2 counts of first-degree cruelty to children, 3 counts of aggravated assault, 2 counts of concealing the death of another, and 1 count each of second-degree cruelty to children, making false statements, obstruction of a law enforcement officer, and battery causing substantial physical harm in connection with the death of her sons, Jacarter Penn, who was 1, and Keontae Penn, who was 2. She's been in custody since October of 2017. According to the arrest warrant cited by WAGA, on October 13, 2017, Williams called Atlanta police at approximately 11 p.m. and reported she came home from work and found her 2 young sons dead in the kitchen. She allegedly said a caregiver watched the boys while she was out, but a caregiver was not anywhere to be found. She reportedly said in the 911 call, quote, "When I came in, the stove was laying on my youngest son's head, and my other son was laid out on the floor with his brains out on the floor." Williams also asked the dispatcher for help because she didn't, quote, "want to get locked up because this is not my fault." Prior to calling 911, Williams allegedly called Jacarter and Keontae's father and showed him the boys' bodies via a video call. So she FaceTimed their dad, showing them their dead bodies. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution, which also cites the warrant, reports that Atlanta police noted the 2 boys, quote, "received burn marks on their bodies at some point, possibly from the stove." Investigators allege Williams killed Keontae and Jacarter by placing them in an oven and turning it on. Another child was at the home at the same time the little boys were killed, but he was unharmed. Williams' 4th child, a 6-year-old girl, was not at home. Williams' next court date is also not currently available via public records.
Wow. Just put them in the oven. It didn't say what temperature it was?
No, we don't have details like that just yet.
Oh my God. Wow. I'm kind of speechless for a moment. I'm also kind of reminded of the video I saw online. This guy was babysitting a kid who was about that age, and he put some money. He was in a laundromat. He put some money in a washer, and he put
God.
the kid in the washer. And what he didn't count on is that the door would lock and start spinning the kid around, and they had to get an employee to come and unplug the machine. And in laundromats, employees are not usually around, so they were lucky. But wow, this is really fucked up. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so those kids, yeah, they obviously didn't survive that. So she put them in the oven, and then she put the oven on top of them afterwards, just to make it look like it.
I don't know. I don't have any clarifying details about exactly what transpired. It sounds like maybe she started off by putting them in the oven, and maybe she didn't count on them not dying right away. I don't know. And then she took it into other means, because I mean, if she actually knocked the stove or tipped it onto her child, that would account for what she, quote unquote, said was all over the floor.
So I guess that was her way of saying, I'm not a complete psycho. I just tipped it over on them. I didn't bake them.
I just don't. Why would an innocent person straight out tell the police in a call, "I need help because I didn't do this"? Shouldn't your first thought be like, "Holy shit, someone come get my kid. Someone come try to help"?
Oh yeah, that's a giveaway right away that she feels no remorse about it, and that
Well, and then to be able to FaceTime
yeah,
or video call someone and show them.
check it out.
No,
Yeah,
no.
yeah.
God, fucking
Yeah.
gross. All right, what do you got?
Right. So some of the so this is a completely different kind of topic. So from some of the most fucked up parents in the world to another part of the world, my part of the world, Canada. So we kind of have a reputation for being very liberal and tolerant, but actually hate crimes have been on the rise here. So this article is about that. Hate crime reports reach record high. Data shows ties to quality of life. The impact of hate crimes may have a ripple effect beyond the victims in Canada. People who live in Canadian cities have had high rates of hate crimes, were less likely to report positive physical and mental health compared with people in other parts of the country, according to Statistics Canada. In a recent study released Thursday, Statistics Canada said it found that fewer Canadians, 46%, in these areas that saw more hate crimes reported excellent or very good mental health, compared with other residents, 50%. Hate crimes affect more than just the individuals who experience them, wrote StatsCan on its website. Communities that identify with the individual may feel vulnerable and fearful that they could be targeted next. Beyond the targeted population, the effects of hate crimes may also negatively impact social cohesion and sense of belonging for other people living in affected areas. The study explored the connections between the police reported hate crimes and social impacts and trends. The study generally found that areas with more hate crimes saw poorer scores for quality of life indicators. However, StatsCan notes that the study didn't measure whether the poorer quality of life outcomes were caused by experiences related to hate crimes or contributed to conditions leading to hate crimes. Rachel Ciomenias, an Ottawa-based analyst at Statistics Canada who worked on the report, said the findings are statistically significant. She believes it was the first time Statistics Canada used quality of life indicators used to measure how well Canadians are doing with income, healthcare access, air quality, mental and physical health, among other criteria, in a study about hate crimes. Excuse me. Looking at all these numbers and how many different quality of life indicators were lower in high hate crime areas, there has to be some sort of relationship. She said in a phone interview with CTV News, "We can't say whether hate crimes cause bad quality of life or bad quality of life causes hate crimes. We just know that it's a plausible relationship." Among Canadians living in high hate crime areas, 51% reported excellent or good physical health, compared with 54% of those in other cities. What's more, StatsCan found that fewer women and racialized people reported positive mental health in cities with high hate crime rates. Assault on victims' identity. Individuals subjected to hate crimes based on their race, ethnicity, religion, or a similar characteristic may experience heightened psychological distress. This is because such incidents represent an assault on a fundamental part of the victim's personal identity. The study comes after the total number of hate crimes climbed to a record high of 3,576 incidents reported to police in Canada for 2022. The rate of hate crimes nationally almost doubled in 2022 from 2019, with 9.2 incidents per 100,000 population in 2022 compared with 5.2 in 2019. The rest of the article is pretty much the same as that. I feel like one thing maybe that causes this uptick, and then maybe it's the same in the United States too, is there seems to be a tendency in the media, mostly on the internet, I guess, to rationalize bigotry. There's a lot of people in certain areas of the media who are doing that. So that, and I think that gives certain people who be inclined to carry out hate crimes the tendency to do it, like they
Well,
feel justified.
well, currently I'm sure you guys have heard about it. There was a transgender student who was assaulted in a school bathroom. Um, and the state they lived in regulated, the superintendent of that school system was against like transgender like care, like how they're allowed to go to certain bathrooms. Well, no, they have to go to the original bathroom that their birth, gender is affiliated with. And this child got assaulted in the bathroom, didn't immediately get help, and ended up dying as a result of the injuries the next day. And there was really nothing done by the school or, even the superintendent, and it's caused a huge uproar across the country. And now they're gunning for the superintendent's job because they're not providing safe spaces for these kids. And then, you know, incidents occur at school and they're not holding people accountable or responsible. And, you know, they don't approve of it anyway. So they're not doing their part to keep everybody safe just
Yeah,
because they let their personal beliefs get in the way. And it's, yeah.
people avoid accountability or find a way to excuse it, I guess, by through semantics, like through language. I mean, obviously they know you can't use slurs anymore.
Right.
So find ways to kind of skirt around it, but what they're still saying is they're still using exclusionary language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can understand it being an increasing concern everywhere. And yeah, I wish I had, you know,
And the thing is too,
something I could say that would help, but there's, personally, I don't see too much of it in the community I live in. But I live in a smaller town. And I mean, it is diverse in its ways, but when it comes to like gender identity and sexual orientation, like I see a gamut of it. But I mean, in the schools here, it seems to be more understood and accepted versus than, like the older generations who are the ones voting and stuff like that. Like they don't agree with it still, but the younger generations are coming around to it and being more inclusive and understanding and accepting. And so there's kind of a divide. It's weird. But I personally usually don't ever see anything about that. The most we see on a regular basis are the people protesting abortion outside the Planned Parenthood clinics.
oh yeah, that still goes on.
That's every year.
But I mean,
Every year.
well, high school is still a pretty rough place, though, isn't it? I mean, there's still
It
bullying.
depends on the school too.
Yeah.
It depends on like what city school district you're in. Some schools are a lot worse than others. And then surprisingly, like they're rough in different ways. Like the school I ended up going to when I moved here was like almost 50-50 black and white. And the school I grew up, like the school system I grew up going to, had more diverse racial diversity. It wasn't just 50-50. And even with that 50-50, like everyone was still just cool with each other. As long as you weren't an asshole, like it didn't matter, what you identified as, how you dressed, that kind of stuff. So, but
Yeah. Well, in these times when there's so much, economic strife, there's a lot of tribalism. That kind of thing tends to crop up quite a bit. And and God, there's so much poverty now. It's really intense. Like they're all
yeah.
actually, and I saw some footage from Ohio where there are these ghost towns where just
Hmm.
just like dozens of houses that have been abandoned, and the factories have closed down because these places have become no-go zones. And so in that kind of environment, discrimination can go up, and yeah, racism can go up, and all that kind of stuff, because yeah, we're living in hard times, man.
That's putting it so lightly.
Yeah.
And it's not even scraping the surface, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the town I live in was one of those big industrial towns back probably, you know, in the early 1900s through at least the 50s. And then as time went on, the major factories shut down. Those buildings got demolished. And depending on where you're at in town, yes, there are a lot of abandoned houses and condemned houses. But despite all that, it's kind of interesting that where I live now is like starting to turn itself around. And it seems like my age group of individuals and people like maybe 10 years older are starting to invest back in town.
Oh,
Whereas before, like no one was willing to put in the effort and the time to kind of beautify everything and kind of you know, bring everything back to life. And it's slowly happening. So it's been super interesting. But despite all that, you still see homelessness, you still hear about the shootings, and there's drug activity and gang activity and the violence and, you know, threats of school lockdowns and shit like that. So
and I hope things have turned around for the Sextons. I truly do.
from
'Cause
what I understand, distant family who share their name do not affiliate with them. They just prefer to act like that never happened. There's a curtain. They mm-mm.
oh yeah, of course. Yeah, there's no family reunion there. Okay. All right. Yeah. So what's your third story?
That's my second story.
That was your second?
No, I'm on two. This is
Oh,
the one I'm
on.
about to say is
Yeah, that's
two.
great. Oh
All
yeah,
right,
yeah,
so
yeah.
we're getting away from evil moms. Wyoming woman disappears after receiving love letters from ex-employee. This one was kind of interesting when I was reading it. I was like, oh man. And it's still ongoing too. So Chris Richardson, who was a very rich widow, suddenly goes missing and basically disappears into thin air in Casper, Wyoming. She was last seen alive on a chilly October evening in 2014 around 5:30 p.m. It was described that she was seen at her mailbox getting her mail, and then a next door neighbor of hers saw her pull her car into the garage, as her daughter Amber reports. Um, that night, she came by my house to bring me a birthday card because it was the daughter's birthday and just to tell me to have a great night, and then she left and went home, said Amber. It was the normal routine. She gave my kids a kiss and said, I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. The next morning, though, Chris Richardson was a no-show at work. Amber and her husband Pete raced to Chris's home, which was just around the corner. When I saw her car still sitting in the garage, I knew something wasn't right. Inside the house, sheer panic sets in as Amber and Pete search room to room. Everything, a purse sitting on the kitchen counter with $700 in it, her driver's license, cell phone, passport, birth certificate, suitcases, clothes, everything was still intact. Inside, there were no signs of a struggle. There were no signs of any type of foul play or that anything had happened. Her cell phone was laying on her bed. Again, she was an owner-operator of a trucking company, a pretty large trucking company here in Casper, Wyoming, and all the trucks have to be dispatched through her. That cell phone is the way she got it to a person that's running a company, and that's the only way you can make money is to have that cell phone. That is very suspicious, said Hatcher. As detectives combed through the trucking company's financial record books, that's when they made an explosive discovery. Between the bills and invoices, they found love letters, and they were all addressed to Chris. So the entire focus of the investigation decides to shift toward this man the police said had an obsession with Chris Richardson. The letters are from a man named Bud Boyles. He was a truck driver for Richardson Trucking, and he had worked for them for a while, said Detective Hatcher. Over the years, he got a friendship with a lot of the drivers and Chris Richardson again, but his kind of went a little more than the other drivers. He wanted to pursue something more romantic with her. Chris's children tell Jason Matera that they knew about the letters. She mentioned it to us a couple of times that he had written her a letter or called her one day, but never did she say, I need someone to take care of this or I need to call the police. My dad confronted him one day at Richardson Trucking and said, You're crazy. I don't know what your deal is. She's not interested and knock it off, said Amber. Chris's children thought it ended there, but apparently it didn't. He continued to call her and tell her that he didn't understand, that he loved her, and asked why she wasn't loving him back. When Chris's husband passes away, her children said Bub Boyles didn't miss a beat. In less than 48 hours, he was back at it. At this point, Chris begins to save the letters in Bud's employee file. Chris's kids claim that this is a tangible paper trail. Detectives find no evidence Chris ever reciprocated or had any romantic interest in Bud Boyles. In fact, according to her children, in the days leading up to her disappearance, she started to become increasingly fearful of him. At a certain point in time, she got uncomfortable with him being in the office without another person around, so she always made sure if she knew he was going to be there or if he was coming, that someone else was there as well. Detectives question Boyles, and he has an alibi for the day Chris went missing, all except for 3 crucial hours. And Chris may have had good reason to be terrified. Even though Bud Boyles had never been charged in the disappearance, detectives agree the letters seem to express an extreme infatuation and escalating anger. Then, just like that, according to Amber, Bud Boyles quits working for Richardson Trucking, and then days later, Chris vanishes. At this point, they have a $250,000 reward put up by Chris's children for any information that can help them find their mom. If you guys, if you listeners or viewers have any information relating to this case, that you are urged to contact the Casper Police Department.
Well, this reminds me of all the rom-coms where the guy, he asks out a woman and she turns him down, but he won't give up and he just keeps pestering her. And it's presented to us as very romantic and sweet.
He's determined. Look at him go. He doesn't give up. Yeah, no.
Yeah, the word stalker never ever comes up, right?
Right. That doesn't exist in rom-com world. Absolutely not.
Yeah, and at the end of the movie, of course, she falls in love with him. And maybe
he wore her down. Look at him go.
Yeah, right. Awful. Maybe that idea has given a lot of guys this false notion, like if only you just don't give up, just keep going after her. Eventually, she'll give in and go out with you.
You know what they say: 50 no's means a yes.
Yeah, maybe for a job at Starbucks, but not with a woman.
No way, Jose. It's too much.
I did know a guy who asked out a girl probably 10 times, and she did eventually go out with him, but she treated him like shit the entire time because she just didn't respect him because he was just kind of too much of a puppy dog, I guess. So yeah, this is just stalking, plain and simple.
That kind of shit makes me terrified just being a woman, just because you never know. Like, bad enough if I'm on TikTok and all of a sudden the same person starts liking every single video. I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And then you get the message request, this is not making me want to talk to you. This is the opposite. I'm going to run away and block everything and hide. I don't want you wearing my face.
Yeah, have you been stalked before, really followed, or just online, or has it happened in real life?
There was one instance where it wasn't stalking, but someone was definitely pushing boundaries. So when I worked at the mall, I had a regular customer who was at least 20 years my senior. And he was a nice guy. He was a regular customer. He came in and spent a lot of money. So we were always excited to see him because we're like, hell yeah, we're going to make our numbers today. But when I ended up quitting that job, apparently he had a crush on me and he talked to my boss, and my boss, not realizing anything, gave him my Facebook information. So the next thing I know, I get this weird long email confession message from him, and it's oh, I always thought you were so hot, and your boss gave me your info because I didn't realize you weren't working there anymore, and I really want to take you out. And it was so creepy. And
Oh,
like it grossed me out in my own apartment. Like I felt like he could be in the walls. And he
wow.
didn't know where I lived or anything, but it was just so invasive and shocking that I was just instantly like creeped out for a while. And then I called my old boss and cussed him out. And I was like, dude got real fucking weird really quickly. Like I was like maybe 20 when this happened. This guy was in his 40s.
Wait, what business was this?
I don't want to say. I worked for Spencer Gifts. And when I worked there, we were at the time we still sold a bunch of horror movie memorabilia and like action figures and stuff like that. And this guy was an avid collector. And like, okay, so what creeped me out too was I had lived somewhere before the apartment, and that dude was a UPS driver. So he actually was
Oh,
on my street. Like the street I lived on was part of his route. So he knew the old house I used to live at. And he would always like if I was working, like he'd be like, "Oh, I saw you earlier today, like when I was going to college and stuff like that." And didn't think anything of it because I was like, "Cool, you're gonna spend $400 right now. Like, I'll talk to you, whatever." Never, not even flirting or anything like that, but it was just that base interaction. It's like, "Oh, she's hot. Gonna go for it." And I was like,
did you ever wait tables?
no, I never did a restaurant job. I
Because
worked,
I,
yeah, no, I never did that.
because I read that when guys hit on waitresses, that's like so awkward for the waitress because they're
Oh,
just
well, yeah,
because they're
that could
just
be awkward at any job.
because they're being friendly because it's part of their job. But the guy's like, "Oh yeah, you're so hot," and want to take you. But and the waitress, she can't walk away. She has to keep take his order.
Right. Yeah.
You know?
I had someone hit on me when I worked at a call center. It was this old biker dude. And
Oh
he
yeah.
was, it was so awkward. I was like, I just want to fix your phone account. Like, just shut up. Like, I was like, there's no point in telling me how amazing you think my voice sounds because you don't even live in the same state. It's like, no,
Yeah, really.
it's
Well,
so weird.
speaking of psycho stalker guys,
Oh
uh,
God.
this week an episode is coming out on the podcast called Double Trouble Part 6. And so there's two offenders in this episode, and one of them is a guy named James Osuna, and he became obsessed with the Joker, and he tattooed his face to resemble the Joker, and he did a lot of crazy shit that the Joker did, and some of it he did to a woman he was involved with. So I just want to warn everybody, this is like one of the most fucked up cases I've ever covered in terms of gore and dismemberment and everything. And he was laughing at the families who were suffering in court and everything. So
I feel like I remember this. This was recent years, correct?
it's a recent case, yeah.
Jesus Christ. Okay.
All right, so I'm going to preface my next one by asking you. So I presume I'm sure you must be a good housekeeper, but if the woman friend came into your home and made a negative comment about how well you keep house, would you get angry? Would you confront her? What would you do?
I've had I had an ex-boyfriend's mom come in and try to re-clean the apartment before one time.
Oh,
Pissed
really?
me off instantly because it wasn't dirty, it just wasn't the way I take offense to it. Like it's one thing if my house is dirty, but I'm never going to expect anybody to come in and clean. That's my fucking problem. And if you
Yeah.
don't like looking at it, tell me. Don't just take it upon yourself to start going through my shit to clean my house. It's not your problem. Like, don't make it something it doesn't need to be.
Well, my third story, the headline is Nebraska woman allegedly stabbed guests who said her house was dirty. So here we
She's gonna
go.
make it even dirtier.
Yeah, the woman reportedly picked up a knife and slashed one of the women in the face. Yeah, so a Nebraska woman's feathers were ruffled after her friend commented on her home's untidiness, leading the irate homeowner to allegedly stab her friends as her two children watched in horror. According to an incident report from the Lincoln Police Department obtained by Fox News Digital and an arrested affidavit obtained by KOLN, officers responded to a 911 call shortly after midnight on Sunday. When they arrived, two witnesses said that 24-year-old Tatiana Iniguez attacked them after they commented on her home's untidiness. The women said that they commented on the home's cleanliness since there were 4 young children present. The homeowner had two children, and one of the women also had 2 children. During the interaction, Iniguez attacked one of the women and choked her, according to the arrest affidavit. The other woman stepped in to intervene, and police said that Iniguez began punching her in the head. After one of the victims managed to separate Iniguez and the other victim, the 24-year-old woman allegedly grabbed a knife and began attacking her while threatening to kill her. Police said that Iniguez managed to stab one of the victims below her eye. Authorities observed a 1.5-inch laceration below the woman's right eye, as well as defensive wounds on her hands. In the incident report, an officer noted that Iniguez's home was unsanitary and contained an extreme amount of dog feces in the basement and dead mice. Iniguez was arrested and charged with second-degree assault and possession of a deadly weapon while committing a felony. She is due back in court on March 14th. So, well, they certainly had a point. I mean, dog shit and dead mice all over the place.
Yeah.
Would you say something, or would you just kind of want to turn around and leave as soon as possible?
I would probably want to turn around and leave, and then possibly call CPS, Child Protective Services, because no child should ever have to live with that. That's so, that's so gross on so many levels. And then for her to get so fucking mad to be called out on her nastiness that she about takes someone's eye out and starts like physically assaulting people who are supposed to be her friends.
Yeah, right.
What the hell? Like, was alcohol involved? Do we know like her mental state? Like,
I don't know, but I mean, I think, mentally ill people are the types most likely to live in a house with dog shit on the floor and dead mice on the floor. I think a social worker would have probably removed the children from the home if that incident had not happened.
Right.
Because cleanliness is a big deal. You can't keep kids in a filthy house.
And it's so unsafe for everyone involved because of all the dead animals and, the shit on the floor, like everything decomposing, like that's not good for like, why would you expose little kids to that?
In fact,
how can you be okay with that? That's just...
Yeah. It's bad enough to have rodents in your home, but if the rodents are dying...
If you're killing the vermin...
Yeah.
Like, that's a problem. Those fuckers are damn near indestructible. Like, my God.
Mice can live and they can withstand quite a lot. But if they can't stand your home, if it's making them sick...
And you're not purposely poisoning them, there's something...
Yeah.
Okay, so I got a question for you. So I know you don't have any children of your own, but how far would you go to prevent your children from ever facing struggles in life?
I guess that's a tough one because it's like you don't want your kids to struggle, but you also know like the worst thing you can do is just give them a stipend and not make them work and not make them have to develop, a career or become independent. So that doesn't do them any good either.
Well, this mom took it one step further. So the headline says, Mom used belt to strangle son who was 11, claiming she didn't want him to face financial struggles.
Okay, so that's going a little too far. Way too far.
Yeah. Okay, so a Pennsylvania mother was convicted of murder after she strangled her son to death so he wouldn't have to grow up with financial struggles. Ruth DeRienza Whitehead was charged with the murder of 11-year-old Matthew Whitehead after his body was found in their Horsham home in April of 2023, according to the statement from the Montgomery County District Attorney's Office. The Philadelphia Inquirer, NBC Philadelphia, and 6 ABC reported Thursday that a judge found DeRienza Whitehead guilty of first-degree murder, rejecting an insanity defense that her attorneys had argued for. On Friday, she was sentenced to life in prison, ABC reported. Following her arrest, sorry, I keep butchering this. It just does not roll off my tongue well. DeRienza Whitehead told police that the family had been struggling financially. She said she didn't want her son to grow up with these struggles and admitted to strangling him with a belt as he slept. Matthew's father called 911 after he noticed the door to the primary bedroom was locked and the family's Toyota Highlander was missing. Police found Matthew's body in the bedroom where he'd fallen asleep with his mother, the district attorney's office said. The boy had ligature marks in the front and rear of his neck, and his face was swollen with petechia to his eyes. So that's where, like, your blood vessels rupture, and it causes the white of the eyes to turn like that blood red color. Police found the missing SUV in Cape May, New Jersey, where the mother had driven it into the ocean. She was found walking around 6 miles north of the abandoned vehicle. Authorities said they found a belt on the door of the driver's side of the SUV. Her attorney, Eugene Tenari, expressed disappointment after the verdict, the Inquirer reported. I believe it was strictly as a result of her being in psychosis and mental illness based on the reasons I said. The love of her child, her character. Before his death, Matthew was a 6th grader at Germantown Academy. He was described as being an extraordinary child with a smile as bright as the sun. The school made the statement reported by the Inquirer, "We loved him and we will forever mourn his loss."
Wow. Yeah, I certainly wouldn't go that far to prevent him from going through hardships.
Right.
Maybe it'd be better to make him study harder.
Well, what better way to learn than experience? If your family's struggling financially, explain early on, what, if anything, can be done and how to handle those situations. Build a resiliency and understanding.
Now, mind you, I don't know, considering the economic climate we're living in, hard work doesn't seem to really be much of a guarantee of an escalation in status anymore. So I don't know. It's hard to know what kind of promises you can make at this point.
But at the same time, we don't know what's coming in the future, so why stop it before it even has a chance to show itself, Like, how do you know that your financial struggles wouldn't eventually turn around and that your son would be, in a better place than he is now? He's only 11.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like he can't find work. He's not legally allowed to work.
He hasn't had an opportunity to fail you yet. So.
Exactly, and she didn't give him an opportunity to fail. She took his ass out.
Yeah,
which
really.
Is so fucked up as a parent. Like,
yeah, she was definitely psychotic, schizophrenic or something.
But yeah, sure. That's extreme.
So my last case dealt with an extremely petty individual. Well, I have another one. Denver boy 13 charged with murder in fatal shooting of man whose leg blocked bus aisle. So suspect in 60-year-old's killing may still be tried as an adult. A 13-year-old boy accused of fatally shooting a man whose leg was blocking the aisle on a Denver public bus has been charged as a juvenile with first-degree murder and other felonies, prosecutors said Thursday. So this kid has no tolerance for manspreading, obviously.
He doesn't have that issue yet.
Yeah, he's not old enough, nor is he a woman, but the Denver District Attorney's Office is still considering whether to try to prosecute the boy as an adult, a decision which would ultimately be up to a judge, said other spokesperson Mauro Kaparian. His name has not been released because he is a juvenile. According to police, their investigation found the teen apparently got into a verbal exchange with a 60-year-old man before shooting him on the bus in southwest Denver on January 27th. A second person suffered a minor injury, police said. The charges filed against the boy, which were first reported by the Denver Post, include 2 different kinds of first-degree murder charges, alleging that he both killed someone after deliberation and by showing extreme indifference to human life. The charges also include counts such as assault and endangering a public transport crew, which are felonies, and possessing a gun as a juvenile, which is a misdemeanor. So what do you think about the whole practice of trying juveniles as adults when it comes to certain charges? Like, how about murder?
Oh, that's such a loaded question.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I mean, this kid is.
I see both sides of it. Kids, on the one hand, even at 16 or whatever, the human brain isn't fully developed to your mid-20s. So at that point, they still have a good solid 10 years of building that they need to do. And the brain, essentially, when it develops, has like 3 layers that develop over time. You've got your core layer, which is all your like your breathing, your, that kind of stuff. The stuff we don't even think about. That's your base level stuff that happens since like birth. Then you have the feeling brain. So kids are hyper emotional. That's why little kids have temper tantrums before they can actually verbally communicate. And then the thinking brain, which of course is the last layer to develop. And as a teenager, their emotions are heightened because a lot of those synapses and those neurons are firing because they're starting to build that, capacity to handle more intense situations. But that being said, they still know base right from wrong. They've been taught it for at least 10, 12 years prior since they were little kids. So to shoot somebody because they won't move their fucking leg, I would try that kid as an adult. You're being worse than an asshole. You literally ended somebody's life when you could have just said, move your leg.
Well, you and I, we knew better than to kill someone when we were 13 years old.
I would have had my ass handed to me by the former generations had I tried to talk shit on the bus. I used to get yelled at in public all the time for cussing, let alone challenging an adult. There's no way. And I never had access to guns when I was a kid either. So it's not like I would even joke about that.
Really?
Someone needs to regulate their emotions, and they obviously didn't. But that's just too extreme. And you are well old enough to know better. It's not, that's a shit excuse to shoot somebody. Your leg was in the way. Who fucking cares? You're sitting on the bus. Were you actively trying to walk through the aisles? You're not supposed to do that anyway. If it's moving, other than getting on and getting off, and at that point, if you're exiting the bus and someone's leg's in the way, let it go. It's not that big of a deal.
You never heard of saying, excuse me?
Right. Be a dick. Say, excuse me. Give them attitude there. Don't fucking shoot somebody.
And if he doesn't move his legs, then kick his leg,
Right.
Don't shoot him.
Do something that's not going to end his life and fuck up the rest of yours. Because if he gets tried as an adult, he's going to get the book thrown at him.
Yeah, well, a lot of people's brains actually don't finish growing until they're in their early 20s. And I know that apparently juvenile prisons actually go up to 25 years old for some inmates. Yes. So, maybe hold them for that long. But, then again, if he kills while he's inside, then definitely charge him as an adult. All right, so we're on to your last story, right?
Yes, also about teenagers making horrible decisions. Kind of funny how they lined up like that this week.
Yeah.
Teen sentenced for killing best friend after man online offered $9 million for videos of murder.
Damn.
To your face.
Well, that could become industry,
Well, An Alaska woman was sentenced to 99 years in prison for killing her 19-year-old best friend in 2019 after allegedly being catfished by a man who offered her $9 million to commit murder. Denali Bremer, now 24, pled guilty to murder in 2023, admitting to her involvement in killing Cynthia Hoffman, the Alaska Department of Law said. In June 2019, Hoffman went missing while on a hike with Bremer and another friend at Thunderbird Falls in Kuujjuaq, Alaska. 2 days later, her body was found on the banks of the Eklutna River, bound with duct tape and with a gunshot wound to the back of her head. Authorities said Hoffman had been in an online relationship with a man she believed to be named Tyler, who claimed to be a millionaire from Kansas and who offered her $9 million to kill someone and send him pictures and videos of the crime, according to the charging documents. Bremer and another friend, Caden McIntosh, who were 18 and 16 at the time respectively, drove Hoffman to Thunderbird Falls, authorities allege. McIntosh is accused of shooting Hoffman after the pair duct taped the victim and took photos of her. Prosecutors argue that even though she didn't fire the shot that killed Hoffman, Bremer was responsible for the murder. She may not have pulled the trigger, but this never would have happened if it weren't for Denali Bremer, the prosecutor Patrick McKay said. McIntosh, who is charged with murder, is still awaiting trial. Another man connected to the case, Caleb Leland, pled guilty to second-degree murder in November and is also awaiting sentencing. 2 other teens were prosecuted in juvenile court for their alleged involvement in the case, reported the Anchorage Daily News. It was eventually revealed that Darren Schillmiller of Indiana had catfished the teen and solicited child pornography from Bremer, according to the Department of Law. Schillmiller is pled guilty to soliciting a murder and was sentenced to 99 years in prison in January. The 99-year sentence came after a judge called her conduct cold, calculated, and carried out to a T. The Anchorage Daily News reported that Hoffman's father, Timothy, said his daughter had developmental disabilities and considered Bremer to be her best friend. My daughter just wanted friends, and now I have to bury her, he reported.
God, it's what's the sad thing about the internet, because they used to talk about how it was going to bring us all together, but it's actually led a lot of people into loneliness because they see how, they see people online who appear to have all these great social lives, and then they end up getting suckered into these situations like this, or cyberbullying or something like that, or God forbid, the girls who are entrapped in these situations where like
being exploited and
that must be a big thing a big part of the platform that you have when you speak to students in high school, safety online and everything.
We do talk about it a little bit, but it's more trying to think. We have separate presentations we can give on that. We do talk about bullying and media violence and stuff like that, and just we focus more on drugs and prevention and stuff like that too. But I mean, yes, I have had instances where I have discussed internet safety with high school students before, and it's just it's no different than we were kids on the internet. That stuff never really gets deleted. Just, be mindful and don't believe everything you hear, see, or whatever someone tells you.
So. Well, there should probably be a whole course in high school for girls just on safety in general, both online and offline.
Well, and it's not just girls either. There's sometimes guys get wrangled into it too. You just don't hear about it as much because, there's that stigma, and it's quite embarrassing and traumatizing, and you just never know.
Yeah.
Guys getting catfished by people who they think are the hot girl from this next school over, sending pictures, and then all of a sudden, bam, this adult man's like, if you don't give me what I want, I'm posting this on everything for everyone to see. And it's horrible.
Yeah, one of the hard things about, using a dating site these days is the bots, where they just have a picture of a girl that looks like she was just taken, looks like the photo came from a magazine, like a fashion magazine. So a lot of the time It's obvious how phony it is, but they've gotten better at it, and so yeah, that's how men get sucked into it.
Well, and I have friends who, just depending on their profession or whether they've had any modeling experience, I see fake profiles pop up of my friends online all the time, where someone
Oh,
just snatched a couple of their photos and is trying to create, you know, new profiles and reach out to people and harass them for money and whatever. And
identity theft.
it's
Yeah.
a whole thing. Yeah, but you try to report that stuff and usually nothing comes of it. And it's like, what's it going to take? It shouldn't take escalating to the point of committing murder or, heinous crimes to have your identity protected.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
On that note, I think we've gone through enough horror for the week. Some enough horrifying parent stories. So thank you very much for joining me again, Michelle, and have a great rest of the weekend.
absolutely. You take care as well.
You take care. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.